In an effort to protect vulnerable GOP senators, Mitch McConnell is planning to hold a vote on a skinny stimulus bill to basically provide voters with the theatrical and mythical display of conservatives actually doing something for people. But in reality, it just boils down to theatrics, and that's if they can get the bare minimum passed through the stimulus bill. So during a call with Republicans and Steve Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, McConnell made clear that vulnerable lawmakers, GOP lawmakers specifically, would need to vote in favor of this legislation as soon as possible. So again, he's gonna hold this vote next week. That's what his plans are. As one anonymous source told The Hill, McConnell wants it. McConnell said today is that every member who's up for re-election who has any hint of vulnerability wants a bill that gets 51 votes. Okay, so 51 votes, by the way, apparently isn't enough to pass the bill. As The Hill reports, while the legislation would need 60 votes to advance, even a simple majority in favor would be seen as a GOP victory. Republicans are worried their Senate majority is at risk in November because of President Trump's low approval ratings in many battleground states. They also have to defend 23 seats, while Democrats only have to protect 12. So they're panicking. And again, it just kind of goes back to, we don't really care about doing what we need to do to, look out for our constituents, do what's best for the American people. We just want to do what it takes to keep our position of power within the Senate. Now, what happened on the House side? Actually, before I get to the House, John, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, super fast, and I guess it's a bit of a tangent, but I wish that they would identify implied filibusters. I used to hate that during the Obama years when they would just say, yeah, well, of course, every piece of legislation requires 60 votes, as if that's the way the government is supposed to function. I get it, now it's the Democrats with the implied filibuster, but they're right to potentially filibuster this, so I have no problem with it being identified. I think that people need a better idea of how the government actually runs, and the media weirdly obscures it for some reason. But anyway, to the substance of it, yeah, they don't care and they don't need to care. Mitch McConnell is apparently not worried that his base, even in his own reelection, let alone the reelection bids of any number of Republicans in the Senate and the House, is going to be negatively impacted if they do effectively nothing to deal with the fact that so many people have lost their jobs or being evicted or losing everything. I've seen horrific polling about the number of people who can't afford to pay their jobs right now that has been pay their bills when they're unemployed. Those numbers have been going up literally every month as they've allowed the enhanced unemployment to lapse. I assume that the Democrats will try to do something. I guess the question I have for you is, we can see what this ploy is about. We're gonna do something that barely does anything but pretends that we care. Will Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, will the leadership support it because, hey, at least it does something, even if it isn't substantive, if it doesn't really fix all the problems? What do you think they're gonna end up doing?
That's such a great question because, and everyone hang in there because I'm about to give you details on what this skinny stimulus would entail. But apparently there are moderate Democrats, I would argue they're conservative Democrats in the Senate that actually like this proposal from Republicans. Okay, so I don't know what Democratic leadership is gonna do, but what I do know is that it does put the Democratic lawmakers in an awkward position because you have conservative, Democrats who are kind of pulling and pushing Democrats overall in a more right-wing direction. So let me give you the details though on what passed in the House months ago, honestly. And this is something that they can't get through the Senate. So the House Democrats passed a $3.4 trillion coronavirus relief package in May and have repeatedly hit Senate Republicans for not bringing their own bill up for a vote. After an initial $1.1 trillion version was unveiled by Republicans in July, several of the 53 GOP senators who are not up for re-election raised concerns about the price tag. So you have these right wingers who are like, yeah, we don't like the House bill, it's too much. But even the watered down version of $1.1 trillion doesn't do it for them. It's like, oh, yeah, that's too much money to help the American people in the middle of this pandemic when tens of millions of Americans are still unemployed. Okay, Now, the latest version that the Senate is likely to vote on next week is the skinny stimulus, right? And it's gonna cost about $500 billion to $700 billion. And so the Hill reports that moderate Democrats, especially in the House, are pushing for something like this. And it puts Democratic leaders in an awkward position, said a Senate GOP aide. The aide was one of two who confirmed that legislation is not expected to include another round of the $1,200 direct payments like the ones included in the CARES Act from late March. It would not include significant aid for state and local governments beyond the $105 billion to help colleges and schools resume classes this fall. So it's incredibly, incredibly watered down, and it just does not provide enough to give people the relief that they need right now. And so, look, so much about politics is about the theater and is about the messaging. So the way that the Senate Republicans are gonna play this is they're gonna vote in favor of it. If it doesn't pass, then they can point at Democrats and be like, look at them, look at them. They don't care about you. We're trying to get this stimulus through and they've blocked it. And that's the way you do politics. Now, Nancy Pelosi could have done the exact same thing. It's just that she's not good with messaging. We've seen her on TV. She went on cable news a few times. She did her best. Get AOC on there. Get someone who actually can do decent messaging and hit Republicans where it hurts. No offense, Nancy Pelosi seems super disinterested when she does those interviews.
Yeah, and they could certainly do more in terms of the messaging. In terms of, sort of strategically using a bill's failure to advance your political agenda, they have the advantage, the Republicans do in the Senate, that they can put a bill up and then have it voted down. The issue is that the Democrats have had bills for literally months, but the Republicans of the Senate won't allow them to be even raised for a vote. And so, like, hypothetically, they could say, hey, we've got a bill, we wanna vote on it, but that's not as strong as being able to say they literally voted it down. The entire thing is so frustrating. Again, like I've been saying a lot recently, we're a failed state. Something like 1 out of 5 Americans lost their jobs. We gave people $1,200, and then maybe in 4 months after that, we think maybe we'll do it again in the biggest failure of our economy and our public health system in our entire lives. That's what we have. That's what the American government has for its people.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.